Well, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us here today for our first official panel event for our new Women's Speaker Series. And of course, this came out of a great suggestion when we had a lunch speaker series during International Women's Day month. And a lot of us were kind of saying, you know what, we have a lot of awesome women in our community, and why don't we do this more regularly, not just once a year? And so the Women's Speaker Series was born, and that came from all of you. So thank you so much for being here. I am so thrilled to introduce our panelists today. We had such an amazing time talking about our journeys, talking about what it's like to be a woman in business or any of the fields of endeavor that we're in. And we're going to do that again today with our awesome panelists. And we have an incredible lineup for the rest of the year. I'm really excited to be able to share that with you in due course as well. And we'll hear from our panelists for about half an hour or so, and then turn it over to the floor for your questions. We love the interactive portion. Before we do begin, I want to thank Jackie Jones. I hope Jackie is on the line with us, for sending us the idea of creating a panel centered around our female downtown business, Burlington business owners, and that's who we've got here with us today. So as I said, this was really something that was generated by all of you out there listening. I'm just the moderator here. So Jackie brought these three amazing women. Some of you I've known before, and some of you I only know through patronizing your business, but I'm really looking forward to our dialogue today. So anyone who is watching out there today, and maybe we can also put this in the chat for you, if you have any ideas of women that you know in the community that you want to suggest for our Women's Speaker Series, please do let us know, and you can simply email that to my office at mayor@burlington.ca. We are always looking for good ideas, and it has been no trouble at all, I will tell you, to fill every spot for the balance of the year. There are so many amazing women in our community. So we're just going to do this till infinity and beyond, because we have that many amazing people in our community to do. So before we do get started, I wanted to read a land acknowledgement. Burlington today, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabeg to the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, our lands spanning from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment are steeped in Indigenous history. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. So we do have a question period scheduled at the end of the event, and if you have any questions, you can post them in the Q&A section. I have an awesome team that is helping put this webinar together. We'll be monitoring the chat, and they are the reason why we're able to do this at all, which is great. So thank you for your support. You can also raise your hand in the chat feature. I know we're all a year into this, so we know how to use the chat, and the participants, you can raise your hand and we can bring you in as well to ask your question live if you'd rather do it that way. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our three panelists. We have, and maybe you can each wave, I know your names are there, but wave when I call you so that folks can see you. So we first have Laura Bradburn from Styled Lounge, Dr. Maja Edgar from the Edgar Family Chiropractic, and Naomi Gardner from Bodhi Bar. I'm really thrilled to all of you. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your lunch today, if you get a lunch, to talk about what it's like being a woman in business. So to kick things off, our first question, I'm going to come to Laura first, and then maybe Laura, you can pass it to Maja and then to Naomi. Share with us your story of how you started your business, and how long the business is going, and even how long it's been in downtown Burlington. So over to you, Laura.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. And thank you again for having me. So I opened Styled, we're coming up on 5 years ago, which is crazy. This is my first business. the location itself, I've always loved downtown. I technically live North Burlington, but my heart is South Burlington. It's funny, my husband and I's first apartment was actually downtown here on Pearl Street, and I would pass specifically this unit all the time. And I was like, I just love it. Like, I just love it. And came full circle where it's where I ended up opening my first business. So I actually opened Styled while I was on mat leave from my corporate job 5 years ago. So with my son, my second. And I was just looking for to build a closer community, my own creative freedoms, long-term, my own personal growth. I actually really did love the company I worked for, but knowing I was more in an assistant GM position, and to move forward into that GM position, that job I wasn't going to love so much, and to do those things, and it was going to get a little bit more restrictive, and I'm not really great with that. I do like to have my own creative freedom. So, and I just saw an opportunity, the style only concept. At that point, there was no other style only concept west of Oakville. So from here Oakville till Buffalo, there was no other concept like that. So I had been to something similar out west, and when I go see my girlfriends, or if we went to the States, and I loved what it did. I've been into Toronto to a couple places as well. I loved the vibe and the atmosphere, and so I kind of just went with it. I'm not a hairstylist and I'm not an esthetician, so I did kind of just roll the dice and opening a business that
You just like stylish hair, as we all do.
Yeah, and honestly, like I had probably only had, let's call it, a handful of someone else outside of getting my hair cut or colored, a handful of blowouts in my life prior to opening here. I wouldn't say that was even necessarily the passion. I just love what you could do. That's the community, the fact that you could go and still go somewhere. Like I love going to spas. Spas are great. We have some great ones downtown, but there's sometimes a time and a place. Sometimes I want to go vent. Sometimes I want to just go have a drink with a friend. I want to go with somebody. I'm not going to necessarily, hey, I'm going to get my roots done. You want to come and hang out with me. So sometimes
when I get my nails done, it's really all about the gossip with my friend. It really is. The nails are secondary.
Right?
So I hear you.
It's the fun. It's the fun of it all, and to give you that opportunity, and to do kind of double duty, and again, being part of a community. So that's kind of what happened, and then it's kind of snowballed and ebbed and flowed over the past 5 years.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
we'll if we have time, we'll talk about the pivoting in a pandemic, but there's lots of other things to talk about. Over to, I think we were going to Maja next. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I was really excited to actually get dressed up because I wear scrubs all day long. So I was like, ooh, this is the first time I'm putting on a nice shirt and doing my makeup like from the nose down as well, because been, just my eyes and my forehead.
You look awesome.
Thank you. I also I'm not experienced with Zoom, so I apologize if I'm not like looking at the right area, or if I log off by accident. So just want to preface that. And I just love this idea, and I love that, I love the platform and that we're getting to know each other through this. So my story, if I'm being truthful, I honestly wasn't thinking about owning a business when I was going through school. It wasn't like a goal of mine or something that I aspired to. My parents were both entrepreneurs for a long time. They both left their jobs and opened up their own businesses. So I've always been around it, but it wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to do. I met Cam. That's my husband. We own a clinic together. We met in school, and he graduated. And he graduated ahead of me, and then I graduated 3 years later. And he was at the time working in Alberta, so I moved there. We worked in a clinic there. Then we decided to be adventurous, and we moved to Victoria, BC. We worked in a clinic there, and then we finally decided that we were going to move back to Toronto to be close to my family because we were going to have kids. And so we did that. We got jobs in Toronto, again, working for other people. And because we wanted to be close to my parents, my mom, again, being an entrepreneur that she is, she was working at a bank, but she said, you know what, no, I'm going to quit, and I want to open up another business. This was her first chance in coming to Canada because we immigrated here from Bosnia. So this was her first chance after raising us and putting us through school. She wanted to open up her own business, and they had friends in Burlington, so they loved it. They always visited, and she found a piece of real estate in downtown Burlington that was a work and live. So those are the townhomes where we are currently. And so the plan was for her to open up the business. Cam and I moved as well because Cam wasn't keen on being in Toronto. He wanted to be in a smaller town. And, you know, I remember driving around, we went to Milton, we went to a lot of different areas to try to see like where we want to land. And we loved Burlington. So we ended up buying a house in Burlington, but we were still commuting back and forth to Toronto to work. And so my mom was humming and hawing a little bit about what she wanted to do. And so in the meantime, you know, Cam and I working in different clinics, what we came to realize was that if we wanted to do things our own way and treat our patients the way that we want to treat them, our only option was to open up our own business. So that's how I came, you know, to be a business owner. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been something that, you know, like I said, was a goal necessarily. And yeah, so my mom wasn't sure, you know, when she was going to open. And so she offered up the space where the clinic is right now. And so they live upstairs, and we opened up the clinic downstairs, and that was in 2012. And we've been there ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome. It's great to
Thank
have you. And over to you, Naomi.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to be part of this. This is really fun to be part of something that's kind of keeps us together somehow in this crazy set apart world we live in right now. But yeah, my story, I think I've told so many times, but it's one that's near and dear to me, so I'll tell it yet again. But you know what? I really came from a space that was nowhere near opening up a juice bar, much like you, Laura. Like I, you know, had never run a restaurant before, and I actually was fairly new to juicing too. But I was very inspired by helping our daughter battle cancer, and we were looking for an alternative treatment to help her because she had gone through traditional chemotherapy and radiation therapy. And when her cancer came back, we looked for a natural therapy, and I poured myself into research sort of at the base of all of the natural therapies out there. Juicing was involved in a large part. So we went ahead with the Gerson therapy. Ryan did a 90-day juice cleanse. We switched doctors to an oncologist who was pretty open to giving us some time to see if we could turn her cancer around. And in fact, like in only 90 days, her tumors had disappeared. So it was kind of like mind-boggling to me that, you know, like fruits and veggies can truly be medicine. And so with that this new passion of mine, you know, we had moved recently to Burlington, and I really, really wanted to share this with like as many people as I could. And it started with our own community. We had driven by a location that we're in now. And I literally said to my husband, because I had come from a completely different space, I said, I want to open up a juice bar. And he was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, we should do this. We should really help other people make juicing accessible, because it's hard for people to know what to juice and how to juice and all that good stuff, let alone juice cleansing. So Bodhi Bar was born. I just like love being part of this community. It's so fantastic. And I really, really love what I do. I mean, it's nerve-wracking being an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of like moments where you just sort of say, where's my safety net? Because it's nowhere to be found. But you know, we haven't looked past and we haven't looked back, and it's been 5+ years now. So that's our humble little story.
That is amazing. And you know what I love is the theme that runs through, and this wasn't planned. This is just emerged in the dialogue. The theme from all three of you, and I would say it really resonates with me too, is that we didn't set out to do what we're doing now. You know, I have people asking me, did you always want to be a mayor? Like, and I said, what? No, I was going to be a writer. You know, I was a reader, writer. I was an introvert. And And that's what I did as a journalist for the first 20 years of my life. And it was really, you know, what I'm hearing from each of you is that there was some need that you wanted to respond to, or some desire or passion that you wanted to just keep and hold on to and do it your way. I love that for Maja, and with Laura, just to be around things that made you happy. I mean, that's just an awesome reason to do anything. And you know, and then Naomi, out of your own personal family experience. I mean, that's just, that is what motivates us as women, I think. And to seize an opportunity and to be willing to recognize it as that opportunity and then to go for it is absolutely incredible. And, you know, I think probably if we looked at all of our lives, we've changed direction probably many times because of that. And so my hats are off to you, and it's just really resonating with me that, you know, especially for people out there, if you don't know what you have figured out in your life yet, don't worry about it. Don't sweat it, man. You know, follow your passion. It'll sort itself if you do that. And, you know, all of us are testament to that, because we didn't have a grand plan to end up where we are now. I wanted to come back to, maybe I'll come to you first, Naomi, just come back to what makes Burlington a great place, or downtown Burlington a great place to do business. You know, you could have located really anywhere, and even in the city, you could have located anywhere. I do love Village Square. I walk past it every day with my dog too. So I love it, but I want to hear what drove your choice. Go ahead, Naomi.
Well, you know, I feel like I'm probably not alone in saying this, although at the beginning I thought this was a Body Bar unique experience, that we really attracted some like amazing customers that I would love to call friends to this day. But I don't think that's a unique experience. I really feel like the Burlington community, like our community peeps, are really awesome people. They're very kind and generous and giving and welcoming and accepting. And, you know, from the local businesses as well, like I've drawn so much support from the entrepreneurs around me, which is amazing. You know, Burlington Downtown Business Association has been by our side every step of the way, really pulling us into being involved in community events, which I just really love to be part of that, and meeting so many awesome people in the community. And then also, like, Burlington is this like beautiful beacon for people to come in from outside of Burlington as well. So, you know, that's been fantastic to be part of that, as well as people are exercising along the waterfront and doing the waterfront trail, or going to, you know, some of the great events in Spencer Smith Park, stopping by Body Bar. It's been really fantastic to meet like a whole wealth of individuals, because at the beginning, I thought, you know, this is really going to be about healing people and helping people deal with illness. And it's not been that at all. I mean, it's been that in part, but more so it's been about, you know, just treating wellness. And part of that is meeting and greeting and talking and sharing experience and knowledge. So I love that about Burlington.
That's awesome. And I remember when I was the counselor downtown and sat on the BIA board, and shout out to Brian, I know he's on the call, and others from the BIA. So welcome. I used to describe it as a family, you know, and that's what you are talking about. It's a group of people that support each other, look out for each other. And I know that's been particularly true throughout the pandemic. Over to you, Laura, and then to you, Maja. Why'd you choose? We know you love Village Square, so that part's there.
I do. I said I've always loved the Village. I just always loved our downtown. And I feel like it's almost going to be repeating or kind of mimicking what Naomi we had just said as well. The downtown businesses and community, like our community itself, like I said, are super supportive and super, like, if there's a need, a fundraiser or something, you kind of put a call to action out and people jump all over it, and they're so open to help and support those who need it. And it's incredible. And with the businesses themselves as well, I find it's very much the same, because I think our downtown, we benefit very much from it all being small business. We don't have a lot of chains or big boxes. We all are small business owners, and it's much easier, obviously, to work together in the collaboration, because we all have a little bit more of that creative freedom and less of, say, a corporate structure. You know, we're not going to walk into a Walmart and being like, hey, want to collab? Like, it doesn't really work out very well. But when we're all understanding and be empathetic to one another and know each other's needs and, you know, can share our resources, it's been really awesome. And I have found that with open arms in our entire, not just in the village, but entire downtown. So it's been pretty wonderful.
Well, and I think one of the themes as well is not only do you work in Burlington, but I think all of you live here too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's people who have a vested interest in the success of the city as a whole, as well as residents, as people raising families, if you have families, you know, all of that. Maja, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because I was just thinking, I recently was talking to a patient and I said, you know, for the first 10 years of my life, I grew up in Bosnia in Europe, and then, you know, immigrated to Toronto, and then lived in Alberta and BC, and then Toronto again, and then finally Burlington. And this is the first time, you know, I've been here now for 10 years that I have that feeling like when I go away and come back, it's like, this feels like home. And it's, you know, I never had that in Toronto. I lived there for 20 years. So that says something about, you know, like the feeling of the community. With regards to our business, like when we opened up in 2012, I was just so surprised by the BDBA. They reached out to us right away. They got us involved. There were breakfast meetings at the time. So we just had a chance to meet other business owners, and there was Fit in the Core that we were a part of. And yeah, I'm just really proud to have a business in a place where there are so many female entrepreneurs and business women. Like, I love it. I love that, you know, kind of by accident, I ended up in a community like that. So.
Your story is similar to mine. Most people know I was actually born in the US, lived in Toronto, then Kingston, then Ottawa, then back to Toronto, and moved to Burlington 20 years ago. And the longest I've lived in any place, it's my home by choice, not by birth. And the best place of all those cities, it's the best place to live. So it's great to have you here. Let's talk about what it's like to juggle work-life balance, if there is such a thing, and feel free to insert other words there. There's no such thing as work-life balance. Juggling everything else on your plate, if you have families and kids. I know we all have other interests, and particularly through the last year of the pandemic, which has been an unbelievable, unprecedented event that we all have lived through and tried to find a way to get through with positivity. So I'm going to start with you, Maja, talking about how you have managed sort of overall the work-life balance, and then how you've gotten through the last year of this pandemic.
Yeah, I honestly, since we opened up the clinic in 2012 and then had our kids shortly after that, we've been juggling, I feel like, constantly. One thing that was important for us was to both be involved in raising the kids and working and growing the business. So what we decided to do from the beginning was to work part-time. So each one of us took shifts at the clinic. So I work Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, Tuesday, Thursday evenings, and then Cam has the opposite schedule, so that somebody's always at home with the kids and somebody's at the clinic. So that was a choice that we made very early on. And Cam's been with the kids since they were like 5 weeks and 12 weeks old. So, and then at the clinic itself, we also decided that it would be best to sort of divide and conquer. So Cam is responsible for a lot of the admin and the accounting, and I'm more of the day-to-day running of the clinic and, you know, taking care of staff and stuff like that. So we've always been 50-50 with everything. So, you know, neither one of us can get anything done without the other. So that's kind of been our life since the beginning of opening up the clinic. Honestly hasn't changed too much during the pandemic because we were already at home with the kids. So I know that piece, you know, I mean, obviously it was hard because the girls would have been in school starting in September. Olivia would have been in senior kindergarten. Layla would have been in junior kindergarten. And we made the decision to keep them home and just homeschool them. So we've been doing that. At the clinic, we had to, I mean, honestly, at first it was a lot of stress because we were both off work for 2.5 months. So financially, it was scary, trying to figure out like, okay, how long can we keep doing this, you know, with both of our incomes being compromised? And then opening up and just figuring out how to balance, you know, like, and how to make sure that the staff felt safe, that patients felt safe, you know, and yeah. And now I find that there's a shift in sort of like managing mental health of ourselves, our children, our patients. So it's like, I feel like it's a constant, it's evolving and changing, but it's always a juggling act.
I hear you, and I'm so grateful that you have not figured it out, because I sure haven't. It is a constant juggle. It's almost like a choice to every day to just try to be positive and optimistic and find one good thing to
Exactly.
keep you going. And yeah, Laura, over to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's something that I think, they said, like, everyone struggles with, and it is ever evolving, you know, from as our businesses change to our kids change to our lives change to everything, it changes. My husband also has his own business, so I understand, and we were pretty greatly impacted with everything that's happened in the past year, both being self-employed and yeah, so there's the hardships with that, but it's also we get each other when it comes to that. So when it comes to that home work life balance, it is sometimes nice when you have someone else who kind of gets it, you know, and has that understanding of kind of what you're going through. But between our 2 businesses and 2 kids, and my husband's also volunteer fire for Burlington for Kilbride, so that's something. And then he's part of everything. He joined, he's a joiner. So if there's a committee to join, he's on it. So there's always something happening, and we like to be busy and we like to be part of the community, but it is finding that balance. So honestly, I haven't really totally figured out yet. I think the biggest thing I could say is I've just learned to be more vulnerable for sure, and lean on the people who are offering their help. You know, I know I like to help people, and you ask people, like, if you need anything, let me know. And people will say that around me who I know care and want to help, whether it's my staff or my mom or my husband. And you always just say like, okay. And I did that for a really long time. So I've started to take them up on it a little bit more, especially in the past year. And I think just being open and vulnerable and being like, yeah, I need the help. Like I need it, you know, and stopped kind of glamorizing, I think, my busyness, because I think that is a trap we can all fall into as well, of all the things I've done and have to do. And it's hustle, and you're a business owner and you hustle all the time, and it's not realistic, I don't think, and it's not long term, and it's not fun, right? So yeah, so I kind of just tried to give myself a little bit more grace every day. You know, days that are better than others, but take it easy a little bit more, ask for help when I need it, and yeah, and just kind of one day at a time, really.
Very good advice. And I think just about every woman I know, especially every woman that is that drives forward like you do for your goals and for your passions and for your dreams, we're the fixers. We're the, you know, and we're not the ones that reach out for help. It's kind of not even in our DNA. So I'm glad that you are trying to refocus that. It's speaking to me deeply, because I too struggle with that. Over to you, Naomi, about work-life balance.
You know what? All of you are I really feel for everyone. I feel like we're all in this together. Like, I share this experience with you. You know, work-life balance is so challenging. And I think, you know, if I can draw from personal experience, you know, our daughter is still actually to this day battling cancer, and she's going through treatment. And you know, it's so tough, because one thing that is crystallized in those moments when you feel like you might lose someone that you just, you know, is that what is important? Like, what is so important? And I love my business. But at the end of the day, I will never at my grave say, I wish I worked more. That'll never happen. So yeah, so I really rely on an amazing team and like family and friends. And I'm like so lucky because like the Body Bar team is just, they're so strong and they're so willing to help. And to your point, Laura, you have to say yes. You have to say yes. So I've gotten really good at that. Yeah, I've gotten really good at that. And so now, like, I spend so much of my time with my family, and I go for like hikes with my daughter, and it's like the simple things. And now I look at that with like entirely new eyes. I think, oh my God, I'm like so blessed to have this time. I'm not like a super religious person, but like spiritually, I think incredible. Like, the shop is running and we're still helping people, and I can rely on people. I don't have like, I used to be the type of person like that would have to do everything. You know, I'd be like, oh, it's not gonna be done right unless I do it. And now just to say, I can't do it all. Yeah, exactly. I can't do it all. Like, here you go. I trust you. I'm gonna be there for you if you need me, but I gotta go do some other things that are really super important in my life. So yeah, talk about vulnerable, sorry.
Oh, never apologize. You know what? I've just been watching the chat. We're all crying with you, and tears of support and tears of being able to relate. And you know what you've said about perspective. You know, throughout this year, trying to get through the pandemic, I can say for me personally, and probably it resonates with folks out there. The one thing that got me through was you know, looking at how, you know, just how devastating it could be for people, and then not sweating the small stuff, right? Because that can just devastate you. It can drag you down. It's always there. And focusing on what matters, finding that silver lining, if there is one, you know. And I get up every morning, and you know, whether the sun, I love it when the sun's shining. So I like sunny days, but you know, I'm healthy and I'm alive today, right? That's a start. That's a happy start to my day and my family's, you know, home, and you know, and so it's just those little things. It'll be different for everybody, I'm sure, out there, and everyone even on this panel, what those things are. But I'm so grateful that you felt that you could share that with us, and with the folks on the call. Naomi, thank you so much. Let's talk about the greatest obstacles any of us have overcome. We're kind of touching on that a little bit already. I'm going to come back to you, Laura, first, and any words of encouragement or advice that you want to give our folks that are joining us today. Go ahead.
Specifically about like the challenges of
business. But you know what, anything you want to talk about, any obstacle that you feel that you've overcome that you would feel comfortable talking about, and sharing what you've learned out of that for us to hear and soak up.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously this year has been a huge challenge for, you know, the industry that I'm in, or a business like mine. I mean, honestly, I feel for restaurants the most. They've just had it terribly. But in this whole industry as well, I mean, we're generally the first to close and the last to open, and it's proven to be certainly challenging. I don't know. I mean, certainly I'm not going to say like out of the weeds yet by any stretch of the imagination. We're going to continue to kind of, and it's been about, you know, the word of now 2020, 2021, whatever we're calling it now, of like just keep pivoting and keep trying to keep going. But I think one of the things that I've the most internal struggle I think I've had more so than anything is just kind of letting go and just either letting things trying to live by design, but also I have to relinquish some of the things I can't control. And because I am that personality who like, I'll just do it. I'll do it. It'll be fine. You know, like just silly things and letting things go and battling with that as I can kind of just ebb and flow with what's happening and make adjustments to, I mean, I did have to downsize the size of my business. I had expanded next door 2 years ago. And had to let that go just to try to get overhead down, to try to figure it out, but trying to have those conversations with myself about it's not about square footage, you know, like I cannot be attached to square footage. That's not. So it's more those internal battles that I find has been challenging, but it's certainly been a ton of growth this past year for me personally of, again, the things that I value and what is actually important and what I can control and what I can't control. And having those, you know, those hard days and allowing myself to have those hard days and then wake up the next day and be like, okay, it's time to move on, right? Like feel kind of bad for a day and then good for another. So I think that's been the hardest obstacle. I mean, again, I can kind of get into specifics about pandemic life and COVID and all that thing because it's hard, but I think just generally it's just pivoting, moving forward and keep on going, I guess.
Well, you know, that really speaks to me a lot because I think, you know, as you were talking and as I'm listening to us today, it's the internal mental challenge that you have to start with first. That's the first obstacle. Yep. I can do it. I'm strong enough, you know, tuning out the negative, you know, focusing on the positive. That's where it starts. You know, if you can't master that, doesn't matter. All the techniques in the world aren't going to overcome that internal struggle of believing first that you can do it.
Right.
And that's the hardest one too, right?
Oh, for sure.
That's the hardest.
We're all our own worst critics, right? Like we're always the ones who are the hardest. So
well, and my team who's on the call will laugh. We had a horrible Monday. It was like the worst Monday ever, and we're all just thinking, "Oh my God, it's only Monday." And then right. Tuesday was awesome. So we just have to, on those horrible Mondays, we just have to remember that Tuesday's coming, and there will be another day that right. will be better. Maja, over to you about obstacles and how you get through them.
Yeah, I'm just listening to Laura, and I think what I'm hearing is I think a lot of us are type A personalities, and we're used to sort of just taking charge and like going for it and always figuring out a solution. And, you know, I think the biggest challenge in the pandemic has just been kind of letting go a little bit and realizing that you don't have all the control. And I was saying to my patient how I feel like I'm in like mental hibernation right now because I feel like I've lowered my expectations of, you know, my children and my patients and like my husband and myself, you know, and not in a bad way, but I'm just sort of preserving my mental health by just knowing that we're all doing our best. It's not always going to be what we expect from other people, but we're all doing all that we can. And so I feel like I've just toned it down a little bit and simplified kind of what I expect of others and myself. And that's been, I think, what saved me mentally. And just letting people around me know that we're not okay. Like it's at the beginning, it was, you know, oh, we just got to get to this and we just got to get to that. And, you know, and now it's kind of like, okay, yes, we are all struggling. And, you know, so just acknowledging that I think is helping a lot of people. As far as in the spirit of just encouraging other people to open a business, I just wanted to touch on, you know, a challenge that we faced when we first opened up. When we go through school, we're, you know, told basically in school, like, make sure you don't open up from scratch. Like you can't just hang up a sign. Like you've got to build a practice and then open up a clinic or, you know, buy a clinic. And Cam and I were not in a position to do that. So it was really, really scary when, you know, we decided to open up from scratch without any patients. And I just want to encourage people that, you know, it is a risk. It's scary sometimes, but we worked all sorts of crazy hours. We took turns, like we worked in other clinics while we were growing ours. You wear a million different hats at the beginning. And even my mom, she did our reception for the first 2-3 years. The poor woman just sat there for so many hours. But, you know, you do what you got to do. And it may seem like, oh, this is so hard, but, you know, if you just kind of go for it, you can do it. And the other challenge that I had as a woman is coming back from mat leave. So owning my own business, it was very scary to go off on mat leave for, you know, a prolonged period of time. So after my first, I came back 5 weeks after I had the baby, and there was a lot of like mixed emotions because I wanted to be there for my patients, but I also wanted to be there for my baby. And there were times where I was pumping, you know, in the room next to where my patients were. And Cam was, you know, at home basically like doing laps with earplugs in his ears until I got home. Obviously it was all part-time, like I didn't just leave her, but so yeah, that was a challenge for sure, but we figured out a way to get through it, and it wasn't perfect, and I felt guilty all the time, whether I was at the clinic or not at the clinic, but we got through it. So yeah.
Well, and I think that's the curse that all women live under, is that unless we're doing every single thing perfectly in our world, we feel guilty about all of it. And we want to do everything well. We want to be the best mom, the best wife, the best sister, daughter, friend, the best employee, the best everything. And when you're pulled in so many different directions and you're starting to deplete, it just feels like you can't do any of it well. And then, you know, for people like us that are high achievers, we just, you know, it's easy to kind of fall apart and, or feel that guilt, right? And that is something we have to, you know, purge from our minds. That I really like what you said earlier around, you know, just recognizing in other people that everyone's doing their best. We have to recognize about that about ourselves, and to accept that our best is good enough. And that is our best at that moment. What we have to give is our best at that moment.
Yeah.
Naomi, over to you. Obstacles you faced, any words of wisdom?
Lots and lots of obstacles over the year for sure. But I will say that, you know, it probably sounds super cliche, but out of all of those like hardships and challenges, you just really learn how resilient you are. And, you know, like I definitely try to take moments where I just kind of like take stock in it. And I'm like, yeah, I did it. I can do this. I did it. That's awesome. And then, you know, there's times where I didn't do it and I have to be okay with that and say, you know what, listen, this is challenging. This is, you know, certainly nothing that any of us expected. You know, I'm the type of person, I plan things out 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, every single day I have a plan. And this pandemic wasn't part of any of that. So, you know, last year we had grown to 2 locations in Toronto, another location in Oakville, and our flagship location in Burlington. And, you know what, at the end of the day, I knew in my heart of hearts that the other locations just, it wasn't going to make it. You know, it was the absolute wrong time to start a business. So, you know, just having the confidence and belief in myself that I could sort of pull it all back, regroup, and redevise the plan. And, you know, even the new plan is probably going to come about changes every single day that I didn't anticipate. But I think just having that confidence that's born from knowing that you've gone through some terrible things in the past and you've come through the other side, you know, with strength and courage. And, you know, I think that's definitely what it takes to be an entrepreneur, be it in Burlington or anywhere. You've got to have guts, you know, and you have to have belief in yourself for sure.
Very well said. I have lots more questions I can ask, but I want to pause and bring in some of our folks who are watching and see if they have any questions for you. So I'm going to turn to my moderators and see if we have a question either in the chat or a live question to bring forward to our fine panelists today.
We do have a question from Brian Dean, and Brian's asking, he was one of the first ones. Brian asked, I know that some of you on the panel work with family, husbands, children, and/or parents. I often hear that business and family sometimes don't mix. Do you find that you draw strength from this family connection, or is it more challenging?
Interesting. Well, maybe that's a question first for you, Maja, since this is like all family all the time, mixed and mingled. So, and then we'll turn to others. Go ahead.
Yeah, we often get this question, and people are always like, so how do you work with your husband all the time? And the answer is we don't really, because we're there on opposite shifts. So I always say, like, if we had a cubicle next to each other, it might be a different story. But I actually really, it's worked for us. Like I said, we've split up our roles so that everyone is kind of responsible for different things. And so we find that that works. Don't get me wrong, it predominates a lot of conversations at home. So that's kind of a drawback. But overall, I'd say we've had a really positive experience. And like I said, even my mom worked with us for 3 years, which was interesting at times, but positive overall.
Awesome. Laura, any thoughts you want to share on that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely for us has its benefits and its struggles, again, because the empathy again is at least there. Like I understand him and the challenges that he has, and we make our own schedules, but if he's running late, it's because he's running late and he's with a client. It's just, it is what it is. So there's that empathy. It's not like I understand, and we both have to figure it out. And then there's some stuff that causes some challenges for sure, because as much as you're both business owners, our businesses are very different. So as much as like I was like, we'll just do it this way, and he's like, we'll just do it that way, and I was like, well, that's never going to work, and it's never. So it's great for brainstorming and kind of like maybe seeing things from a different perspective. Does it have some interesting dinner conversations for sure? But again, it has worked well for us, and I know we'll never have it really any other way. We both plan on being entrepreneurs or our own business owners for forever. So we'll make it work. But and my mom is actually, of course, I saw Julie had put in there, like, our moms are always part of our business, right? So my mom's my bookkeeper. So that's they're always involved because again, we're moms, right? That's what moms do. And same thing, there's been the good and the bad, because I'm sure if it was someone else who was my bookkeeper, our conversations and maybe my promptness at getting her receipts and documents would be, they can be a little tardy sometimes, because I know she's going to forgive me. So it's, again, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think, with all of it, but a lot more good. So
awesome. Naomi?
It's kind of funny. I think I've had every single family member work like with me, for me at some point, out of like pure necessity. Your kids working for you, I can speak to that because my kids are now all in their 20s, and it's really interesting. It's sort of it's great in ways and really hard in some other ways, because they want to be these independent individuals with their own ideas, and they kind of know everything. And sometimes you're just like, no, you got to do it my way. So that could be a bit tricky. Really couldn't actually move forward and be successful in our business without all of our family members, in particular, my husband, who's always sort of in the sidelines. And it's kind of funny, as much as he does so much for the business, I kind of laugh, because if he wasn't there, who would I blame? Because it's definitely not my fault. But it definitely has its challenges, but my goodness, thank goodness that definitely the positive outweighs the negative for sure, but it's challenging too.
Well, and what's resonating with me about what all of you have said is just finding a way to separate work from the rest of your life. And that's so hard. It's extra hard when your business partner is your husband, or you've got family members that are part of your employee base. And in my case, I have a family of political junkies, and what I do is very public. So everyone has an opinion in my family. They can all say what's going on. So my workday gets really revved up after my actual workday starts, and we talk about it. And that's part of the fun. It's one of the reasons I married my husband, is we love this. We love talking about what's happening in the world. But it's also relentless. And it just meant, there were days where my work never stopped, ever, not once. And then I would dream about it, and then wake up and there were just times when I just need everything to stop for 5 minutes. So we did a little trip when you could still do that. Very, very brief window of time. We rented a cottage up in Muskokas over Thanksgiving, brought my whole family. It was the best thing ever. And I think I'm still running on the gas from that recharge. And didn't talk about work. Sat in a hot tub and had fine cocktails is what I did for a couple of days over Thanksgiving. But it's hard to find those opportunities to recharge when everything's closed. We're in lockdown, right? It's tough. It's really tough, but it's so important. All right, back to the chat to see if there's any more questions for our panelists. Still got a few minutes left.
We have a question from Julie Cole, who has asked, how have you all managed to stay grateful through this? And how have you managed self-care?
Hot tubs and cocktails. Well, one hot tub. We don't have one here. But yeah, I'll turn that over to, let's start with you, Laura. Go ahead.
Staying grateful, I think, has just been, I try to make an effort, whether it's just like a quick gratitude journal or something in the mornings. And like you said, like just waking up in the mornings and realizing like, yes, I have a house over my head. I have my kids, I have my husband, my parents are healthy. Like we're good. So like the basics of all the things I should ever need in my life are certainly there. And so I'm just grateful for that. I think trying to stay involved in the community as well for those who maybe are struggling a little bit more helps keep perspective on being grateful. I've been trying to help as much as I can with things like Compassion Society and some of those things of just collecting donations and keeping those forefront of mind as well, because it's an easy reality check of kind of my own life and stock of things. And as far as self-care, again, I think the easiest thing for me easy / hardest thing, I guess, was giving myself more, being kinder to myself. Like we've been talking about more like that mental front, because there's all that, I'm surrounded by it as far as like my at-home facials and all those things. There's those kind of self-care, which I love and are delightful. But for me, it's been more spending this time of more of that mental game and being kinder to myself and easier on myself and using almost that as a form of like, it is self-care. It's growing in that way of trying not to, because all those other things are easy, that stuff is easy to do, but trying to, it doesn't matter as much if the head portion isn't there. I hope that makes sense, because it's important. So just being kinder all around to myself and like I said, staying grateful is part of it all. So yeah.
Very well said. Maja, self-care, over to you.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with regards to self-care, it's difficult at times to find it. Sometimes self-care feels like just walking to the clinic by myself without, hearing mama, and so just the peace and quiet of a walk. One thing that the pandemic has definitely helped me with is sleep. I realized I was so sleep deprived, especially when we were off for 2.5 months. I actually got some proper sleep and I was like, oh, wow, I feel like a different person. Like I think I've been sleep deprived for years, so that's something that I'm taking away and really grateful that I got to realize was that, I'm just trying to be healthier. I'm trying to exercise a little bit more, sleep. Like you said, I'm trying to be like mindful of one positive thing that's happened in the day. Just grateful that we are safe and, without going too much into detail, but this isn't like my first major life event. We went through a war and, when the pandemic started and the shelves were empty, that was very triggering. And so just trying to kind of be grateful for what we do have, that we don't have to be sort of constantly in fear of losing our life or, having to leave our home. So it's pretty easy for me to be grateful for the things that I do have. And it's more just reminding myself daily of those things. So
it's very powerful. It's like that perspective that we talked about earlier. You have a lot of it from that experience. And we have a delivery at my house, so you'll hear my dog in the background chiming in as well. He's our natural doorbell. Over to you, Naomi.
I've been taking more recently these micro moments. They last about a minute, and I've been really practicing meditation. And I've been trying to be present. Again, probably sounds super corny, but in these moments, I just give myself time to breathe and give myself time to sort of like separate myself from my surroundings and try to really clear my mind. And then I'm like really grateful that I gave myself that moment. And because I find like life is pretty chaotic. And I think that's probably the same for most entrepreneurs in general. So when you just have that moment that you give to yourself, it can really do wondrous things. I have a bit of a mantra that I say to myself in those moments, and usually they're very positive things, and it helps me a great deal. So that's a new thing that I've been doing, and I'm really loving it.
I love that, and you know, here's I'll tell a joke on myself. I've over the years had career coaches, and one time one of them said, "We just need to slow you down." And I remember saying, "I don't have time to slow down." And she recommended meditation, and it's like, yeah, you know, one day I'll have time for that. So this is reminding me. It's actually prompting me to think about that, because it really can be moments, right? It can be a moment that can recharge you more than you would ever think, because it's not the amount of time, it's the intentionality of it, right? We have a couple of minutes left. Maybe we have time for one more quick question. I'll go back to our moderator.
Yeah, we have one question from Ruth, who's asked, what advice would you offer to an entrepreneur considering opening a business in downtown Burlington in regards to ensuring there is a need for the chosen type of business?
All right, you each have 1 minute and then we're done. So maybe I'll come to you first, Maja. Go ahead.
I don't know that, you know, there's anything specific to downtown Burlington. I would just say in general, take the risk, do your research, of course, get a mentor, maybe somebody who understands the type of business that you're trying to open. But even, you know, with a mentor and you know, if you're talking to people and doing your research, I think at the kind of core of it is that we all have different strengths, and we all, I think you just have to trust yourself and trust your own ideas in the end, be authentic, and just, you know, when you're opening up a business, it's not a cut and paste kind of thing. So do something that you are really passionate about, that aligns with who you are as a person, and you'll be successful. Put your clients first, and, you know, so kind of, I'm not saying throw caution to the wind, do your research, but in the end, you know, be true to yourself, and that's what's going to draw people to you. And you got to take big risks. Without big risks, there's no big rewards.
Naomi?
Don't open a juice bar. No, just joking. No, there's lots of great businesses out there. And, you know, welcome to downtown Burlington. And I'm with you, Maja, do your research for sure. And definitely reach out to people in the community. Like when I started, I'm sure it's just like both of you, Maja and Laura, like there are a lot of great business owners in our community that would definitely lend a hand or give you some good advice. So, and I'll volunteer myself.
The Burlington family coming through. Laura, go ahead.
Yes, similar thing. If the hesitation is that someone feels that there might be other businesses like theirs already downtown, like Maja said, like everyone has their unique twist and things to doing. So it's having confidence in your own business and what you have to offer and what makes you unique. And I think having that, making sure you're really strong in that first. But doing your research before again, there was no style only concept down here or something like us. So I took to Facebook and I went onto some of the moms groups and I contacted the admin and administrators, or there's Burlington Together, or there's downtown businesses. And I kind of asked them to anonymously, hard word, post almost like a poll. If I was to open a business, if a business like this were to exist in your downtown core, how would you feel about it? Would you visit it? Would you not? And they helped me out a ton. It was It's like, it was kind of a free resource at my fingertips. And I came down and talked to some of the other business owners and just chatted about how they felt and all that kind of stuff. So you can utilize, again, good old social media and Facebook, sure. If that's or again, if it's something that you feel down here, I wouldn't be fearful of if it's because it's like somebody else's. You are your own unique person. So that's what I would say.
100%, I agree.
Very well said. Well, we are just out of time. I want to say a huge thank you to my panelists for opening yourself up so openly, so honestly, being so truthful. I think that's the inspiring part. None of us have this all figured out, and none of us are perfect, and yet such inspiring stories. So thank you, Maja Edgar from Edgar Family Chiropractic, Naomi Gardner from Bodhi Bar, and Laura Bradburn from Styled Lounge. Thanks to all of you out there. I've been following the chat as well. Such words of wisdom and inspiration there as well. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to do this every month. If you have suggestions for folks you'd like to have on the panel or topics, we're theming these topics as well, and we've got some great ones coming. Please reach out to me at mayor@burlington.ca, and I wish everyone an outstanding rest of your day and week, and go Burlington. Thanks everyone for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.